Hey everybody, it's Benny One, and I'm back at you with another movie review, everyone. And I went and saw Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness last night, everybody. Oh yeah, on a nice big old IMAX screen. Woo! Alright, everyone, so this is the sequel to the first Doctor Strange movie. And it also picks up right after Spider-Man No Way Home. And it also kind of serves as a sequel story, continuing story to WandaVision, because Wanda actually has a massive part in this movie that I most definitely did not even see coming, to tell you the truth. So this movie is directed by Sam Raimi, everybody. That's right, the Evil Dead trilogy horror filmmaker, and then he also is well known for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy that he did. So now 15 years later, he returns to the comic book franchise with Marvel and gets to make a Doctor Strange movie. And you know what? I honestly could not have thought of a better director to replace the original director that did the first Doctor Strange movie, that said this was going to be a horror movie mainly, but he had to leave because of creative differences, and they brought in Sam Raimi to replace him. And you know what? I honestly feel like it probably was for the better, because he's perfect for this kind of movie, because the movie starts out kind of your normal MCU type movie. I'm going to keep this spoiler free too, guys. I'm not going to dive into spoilers because this is a movie that I feel like you need to go in watching it not having any spoilers. So there will not be any spoilers, that nothing that was not in any of the trailers. But yes, the first opening act, kind of, the first 20-30 minutes of the movie feel like your traditional MCU type movie. But after that, it is full on Sam Raimi being able to do and make a Sam Raimi horror comic book movie about Doctor Strange. Like, seriously, the visuals, and it gets dark. There's some like creepy, scary shit. The movie gets really gory at times. I know a lot of people have said this already, but I am a little surprised that this movie did. It really must have nudged that line on being PG-13 and rated R, because there are some kills in this movie later on in the movie, towards the third act and in the third act, that they are easily the darkest and most brutal and gory kills that have ever been in any of the Marvel movies by far. Like, it goes there, and like, you could tell that Sam Raimi pretty much had free reign to make the type of comic book movie that he wanted to make with this character and in the genre. You could tell. Now, there are some things with reshoots and stuff that I'm going to get to that I feel like somewhat bog the movie down a little bit, but not a ton. It doesn't like ruin the movie or anything. So yeah, Sam Raimi, amazing. I seriously could not think of a better director to do this movie. Literally, the Multiverse of Madness, like, fantastic job. You can see his fingerprints all over this movie, like all over the writing, the dialogue, the scenes, the locations, the settings, the horror. Now, it's not a completely horror movie. I would say that it's like 70% horror, and then 30% of it is like Marvel MCU stuff. But it feels way different than your typical Marvel movie, because the Marvel movies have a blueprint that most of the movies follow, besides like the big epic ones like Infinity War and Endgame and stuff. They have a blueprint that they follow, and this movie breaks that fold and gets to do something totally different with everything, which I love. I seriously love. I would honestly say, I mean, because Spider-Man No Way Home is in phase 4, but I honestly think that this might be my favorite movie in phase 4 so far, just because of what it was and how it was portrayed and everything on screen, because of Sam Raimi. So Yes, great job by Sam Raimi, and I'm happy that he got a vision and he pretty much mostly got to make that vision and put it on screen. Now there were reshoots, so it's not a complete vision, but and then Benedict Cumberbatch, of course, everybody returns as Doctor Strange. And this is picking up after Endgame and the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. So we're getting to see him in a different stage of him being Doctor Strange because he's now well known as an Avenger and one of the guys that really saved the Earth and everything. So he's super popular now because he's kind of taken the place of Iron Man because Kevin Feige told Cumberbatch that like your character is kind of replacing Iron Man. You're going to be the anchor of the MCU now. So they've kind of thrust him into that spotlight now as that character in a way. And he's good in the movie. Like, I love this character, and I think Benedict does a fantastic job playing this character. And we get to really dive into him as a character and like his ego and his psyche because we get to see all of these different multiverse versions of him, and that's not a spoiler because they were in the trailers, but we get to see all these different iterations of him from different multiverses and stuff, and it's really cool and how they connect and how they all have similar type things that affect them, affect their past, how they feel. It's just really interesting stuff. And then, of course, the other big character in the movie is Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch, everyone. And I have to tell you right now, the trailers, I just want to thank Marvel for not ruining this movie through the trailers because when I didn't watch all the clips that they released because, man, when these movies get ready to come out, they release all these like 30 to a minute and a half clips of stuff from the movies. I didn't watch any of that shit because I didn't want any of this spoiled for me. And watching the 2 or 3 regular trailers, this movie, the story totally went in a direction that I was not expecting. And what they did with the Scarlet Witch, holy shit, man. She is literally like half of the movie. Like, she's got a big part in this movie, and they take her character down a path that if you're a comic book reader, you're not going to be surprised, but if you don't read comics and you're used to the Wanda that we have seen so far in the MCU, you might be kind of caught off guard a little bit, and you might not be quite sure how you feel about it, because, man, she goes down a path that is crazy in this movie. And Elizabeth Olsen, I would say this is easily her best performance as Wanda and Scarlet Witch, because she's the Scarlet Witch now, and that's what happened at the end of WandaVision, and it picks up her storyline from WandaVision, and that's something that I think this movie did a fantastic job it was juggling a lot of things that it was picking up after. I mean, it's a sequel to Doctor Strange 2 because Rachel McAdams is in this movie, and her character, actually, Christine, has a lot of screen time compared to the first movie. So it's a sequel to Doctor Strange, and it deals with the aftermath and how he's doing from Infinity War and Endgame and all of that happened. It's basically a sequel storyline for Wanda from WandaVision, also picking up where she's at and dealing with shit that happened in that show. The Marvel What If animated stuff that is in the MCU, there is stuff from that in this movie, which is some pretty cool shit, to tell you the truth. A few cameos. I'm not going to even tell you who the cameos were, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Yeah, and it kind of deals with Spider-Man No Way Home a little bit. There's a few things they talk about but I feel like the story overall, with all of that being a part of the movie and kind of tying things up from all of that stuff, I felt like the story was done pretty damn well. Now there's the middle act of the movie, where you could kind of tell where the reshoots happened. I would feel like that's the kind of part that I was talking about. It bogged the movie down just a little. You could tell that the Marvel heads were kind of like, well, you know, we got to go in and we got to do this. That's where I feel like the studio kind of stepped in and messed with Raimi's vision a little bit. Not too much though, but you could tell it was very evident that that's where the reshoots happened, and they were obviously plugging certain things and certain people into the movie because of the success of Spider-Man No Way Home, I imagine. So, but yeah, overall, the story I felt with everything that was going on in the movie was pretty damn well written and everything. So, but yeah, Wanda, crazy shit, man. Easily best performance by Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda. It's crazy. And when you get to that third act, it is just a horror Marvel comic book movie with great action, crazy stuff going on. We get introduced to a new hero, America Chavez, and she's fantastic. I was like wondering, and when I watched the trailers, what is this character even doing in this movie? But because of her powers and her abilities that she has, she's actually really key to the story and what's going on. And her relationship with the Doctor Strange actually was done quite well. I was actually surprised. I thought it all turned out well with her, and her power is a huge plot point and totally meaningful to this movie, majorly. And she's actually a really cool character. Her power is cool. The way that they showed it off in the movie, because I remember her from the comic books, I thought they did a fantastic job introducing her. All of the different iterations of Doctor Strange that we get to see were fantastic. We get characters from Doctor Strange coming back. Now, I will say this, because I feel like this is probably going to affect how people view this movie after they watch it, because the hype machine was going nuts for this movie when it was being talked about and all the trailers were dropping, because they were making it seem like this was going to be cameo palooza. Like everyone from the Fox movies and the X-Men and everything, Deadpool, like all of this shit was going to be in this movie. It was just going to be cameo palooza. Like people that were possibly going to be cast as characters in the Marvel universe that they didn't end up doing, they were going to be in it. Like, and that's not what this movie is. It's not that. There are cameos, certain characters that do end up showing up in the movie, and some of them are pretty fucking cool. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had a big old cheesy ass smile on my face when there was certain scenes in the movie, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. It was just enough though to whet that palate. It wasn't what the movie was about. The movie is about Doctor Strange and Wanda and America Chavez. Like, it's a Doctor Strange sequel movie. It's what it's about. It's a horror comic book movie in the MCU, and I felt like Sam Raimi really did a fantastic job with this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do think the middle act kind of does bog the movie down a little bit. So I'm going to give Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness an 8 out of 10. I think it's a very, very good, solid entry into the MCU, and it is a horror movie in the MCU, and probably the only one that we're probably going to get to see. And this is probably about as horror-esque as the Marvel movies probably will ever get, unless Raimi returns to do a Doctor Strange 3, which I think would be very interesting because of how the movie ended and with what happened with Steven, Doctor Strange, and our 2 post-credit scenes. So I would love to see Raimi come back and do a third Doctor Strange movie for sure. So an 8 out of 10, everybody, for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I hope you guys enjoyed that review. I thank you for watching, and I'll be catching you on the tube later because I have spoken.